Okay, I got some tips for people and eggs. Alright, first of all, the first and most important tip about eggs, especially when it comes to storage, is if you see an egg, generally you can always identify that there's one side of an egg that is pointed more than the other side. Okay, sometimes you can't see it, but when you get an egg from the store, if you notice, an egg is always like this in the carton, correct? If you've ever seen an egg and the point is down. Now, unless you're getting eggs from people who don't know what they're doing, that's one thing. This is the proper way to have an egg stored. Reason is if you understand an egg or you've ever had it, there's actually an air sac right up here. Okay, and it's, if you open an egg, you've probably noticed it. That's kind of like a little bit of the egg white, the goo in there, kind of sticks to part of the one side of inside of the shell, and it's like a little air bubble. This is the part of the egg that breathes. So it's very important to stay up. Now, that is to have long-term storage good on your eggs. Now, you know, eggs that are laid like this is one thing. Now, next is when you get your egg from the store and you take it out of the carton, a lot of people take them, they flip them upside down the way they shouldn't, first of all, and then they do the biggest mistake, which I don't know why fridge companies do this. I notice a lot of them have stopped now, but they put their eggs in the door. Don't ever put your eggs in the door if you're going to have them for a while, because the shelf life, again, will be reduced greatly. So remember to always keep an egg with the pointed side facing down, and you're going to have a longer shelf life on your egg, because I can buy eggs and not eat very many. I used to eat more eggs than probably basically any human. I could eat 2 dozen eggs a week when I had my chickens, and my cholesterol levels never ever were up or anything like that. It was good, but I don't put the things that cause cholesterol, like oil in the pan, butter in the pan. I usually use a lot of my eggs for just basic baking, not to say a filler, but a good protein filler to add places. Now, another thing you need to know about your egg is that a brown egg is healthier for you, okay? And I've done it 100 times to people. If you put a white egg, brown egg, nobody knows the difference. You cannot tell the difference once you broke that egg, the difference in flavor. Now, if you knew they were my eggs, the one thing you could tell is that the yolk was more orange and less yellow, and that's because of the amount of nutrients in the egg, especially if you got chickens that are eating bugs and grass and such and eating all that good stuff. You get a really, really good egg then. The flavor, it's just so much more out there, and it tastes so much better than an animal that's been fed soybean complex. What they call it layer for what these do. Now, you can still feed that to your animal to give it a guaranteed source of all the vitamins and everything it needs, to guarantee it. But if you're allowing your animals to have that, the free range of all the food and everything else it needs, then you're ensuring essentially the perfect health of an animal. And that animal's never going to be hungry. Animal's always going to have everything it needs. So that makes a big issue on your eggs. Now, an egg, I believe, should not be graded by size, because, I can show you an egg difference, you know what I mean? Now, this is an egg. It's about 3 years old. I haven't had chickens in, almost, I'd say, 8 months, 9 months. I haven't had chickens there. Chickens are a lot of work. I had 50 at one point, so it was a lot of work. So anyways, this here, I should put them close together. Anyways, side by side. Right here, this was one of the first eggs my chickens started laying, because when I got them, there's a stun growth time. And then, if you didn't know, that chickens don't hold eggs like this inside them. They actually have just the yolks are inside a chicken, and all you see are a bunch of yellows. They're just hard yellow balls. And what happens is as the chicken produces one egg every, a good laying chicken is between 18 and 36 hours. You can get a chicken to lay eggs. You can even a little quicker than that, some of them, when they're really good, and you can have chickens that lay longer than that, but usually that's where the range of let's say profits are. But my chickens, I'd let them lay longer, more like pets if you ask. But anyways, this is what they call a large egg. Now, here is what I considered myself to be much too small of an egg for myself. That was one that I should show this egg here. When the chicken started laying it, essentially all it was the yolk got encased by the shell, and then the yolk and a little bit of egg white, and then they got bigger to the point I could use them. Now, if you've ever weighed an egg, and you understand circular shapes and volume, grading an egg, and by the way they come jumbo and stuff, is a complete miss. It's more profit the bigger basically the egg gets for the company, because they're suckering you out to pay for something you shouldn't be paying for. Now, when you're paying for a size rather than weight, because I would weigh my eggs and I understood by weight, and then I could classify mine that anyone that weighed between, for me, 30 and 45 grams, I just, regardless of size, because some eggs could be fat around and short, you get different size, but that's how I grade my eggs. So for me, an egg that was essentially under 30 grams was too small to use. I called my small eggs, were, I wouldn't use. I had what I called, I just called them regular eggs, but for me they were between 30 and 45 grams. And then I had what I called my large eggs, my extra large, if you will, a lot of people would say, and those that would weigh between 45 and 60 grams. And then I had what I called I put 3 X's on my little cartons that I would have, and people would want them, because those eggs would be 60 to 75 grams, and I averaged those eggs as my abundant eggs. That's what I usually put out. Now, if you think that this egg here weighs less than 45 grams, and I would give it an egg, like I say, those are my average eggs, were between 60 and 75, and then I had what I called I most usually use them for me and the bigger, but then I'd also get 75 to 90, and that's 2 times this egg, and you call that a large egg. When you start to understand the size difference in volume, you get a concept of how eggs work. And this egg here, I say as much as 45 grams. It's probably closer to 30. I doubt this egg weighs more than an ounce. Probably about 30. But for me, that would be not an acceptable egg to even sell, because it's too small. And my eggs, the biggest egg I think I ever had in size diameter from my chickens, height-wise, try to get in, was probably about that big in height-wise. It was bigger than a duck, longer than a duck egg, and more round than basically a goose egg. It had 3 yolks in it, and it was the biggest egg. And I have it on, I wrote down, I put it on the scale, and I have it, I believe it was a 122 gram egg. Now, if you think compared to this 30 gram egg, it was the equivalent of 4 eggs. Now, think about my eggs that I was, giving away at 30, at 90 grams. That's having 3 eggs. And I would tell people, not that worried about their cholesterol, but tell them, especially when baking, my 1 egg is the equivalent of 3 of these eggs. So if your recipe calls for 1 egg, you're going to have trouble using my recipes. You might have to get the smaller eggs that I have, and tell me, because when it comes to a recipe, you have to be careful with a large egg. Now, this is what a recipe will call for as a large egg, and what they're assuming is your egg weighs 1 ounce. That is what a large egg is, 1 ounce of egg. So when you're measuring eggs in recipes, and you're trying, when they say 2 small eggs or something like that, just have an idea that what they mean by large egg is 30 grams, an ounce roughly, to give you an idea of protein. Now, also protein it's not just protein in here, but you can have an idea of protein and understand, how many ounces is essentially okay, because, half of this will be protein. No, not exactly, but just because if you think ratio to egg white to egg yolk, you know what I mean, half of the nutrients are different. So, an egg has a lot of nutrients. I've never had an issue with my health with an egg or anything. Now, they're real good. Put them anywhere you want. Like I say, you can store an egg, especially farm fresh eggs. They can easily stay on the counter for a week. You don't have to put an egg. You've probably seen people do that too. You don't have to store an egg in the fridge. The putting in the fridge extends the shelf life, and the hot and cold of the door affect the condensation and causes issues with the egg, especially if you're gonna you got children and they leave the door open for quite a while. An eggshell will get warm rather quickly to the radiant heat of the warmth of the air, and you're going to cause issues with your eggs. So I've had an egg because I did the test in the box where I put them in, and I just kept testing, and I did it with, I had over, I think I had like a total of maybe, I did it in 1 week of gathering eggs, and I had so many eggs that I hadn't gotten rid of, so I decided to keep them. I did tests in the freezer and all that. But what I literally did was I did the test out on the counter to see how long stuff would last, and my eggs would last. I could do, not all, but like the best of the eggs could still do up to easily 3 weeks in a warm weather counter. And then in the fridge, I think my best egg did just over 6 months. And that's from cracking an egg open, and it is still fully flavorful. There's no, the yolk hasn't changed the consistency, and the egg white hasn't changed its consistency. I had, in that same box, I'd crack open, and I'd have some black eggs in there, and, the smell and stuff but it was my way of testing my own eggs and to see all the answers myself, because I weighed my eggs. You measure your eggs and all to understand where they were in relation to to the store, So I could have made an egg would make less profit if they actually sold it by weight, because of what you're eating, and not by what size it is this way or that way. Because you can get a fat egg, and they're calling it a same size, a different size than they are a tall egg, but there's the same amount of volume, and they're just charging you more because that one egg is taller, and then because the box makes it just look bigger. So, when they make a box bigger this way in eggs, you don't see the difference. You just won't. When you make the egg box bigger this way, you do see the difference, and then they charge you more for an egg that could be more slender, and you're not paying for any more weight. So, I have I should have brought them. No, I don't have to. They're not too close to me, but I have all the egg boxes, from that I was, looking at nutrition and all the different ways eggs are graded and everything. Because I could go put my egg in a box, and most of my eggs, like I say, the average egg I sold, when I had, usually, let's say 25 of my, 40 eggs, if I had 25 of the 40 eggs, would all be in the boxes that are called extra large eggs, and they would be my average egg put out. And I had to cut the back, how they put the egg down. If you've watched an egg box, it folds over. I had to cut that so it was removed so that the carton box would sit on, because the egg heights were all, they would be all different and everything. But because I knew eggs by weight, and that's how I would essentially put all the eggs. I could give a bigger egg, one that's more round. I'd have to place them carefully in the box, because if I had too many fat eggs, they could be touching each other and actually break. I'd always make sure to put my eggs upside down in the box. I wash all my eggs were hand washed. What I would do is get my eggs as I collected them from the coop. I'd bring them in, and as I collected my eggs, I filled up a big container of water, well, not full right up to the top, about half, but as I collected my eggs, I'd take them, because you get, there's poop and stuff on them. I'd just take them and I'd set them in the water, as I do, cold water, but I'd take the eggs, because usually a chicken might be laying on them or something, so I'd take my eggs, collect them, put them in the water, and then I'd come back inside the house. I'd leave them a little while, at least a little while, in the water themselves. And then I would just turn the water on really, really low. I wouldn't use cold water. I wouldn't use warm, just lukewarm water. Nothing that's going to harm, make me cold in the hands. And then I would just take the eggs and I wash them each one by hand, and then put them aside. That's how and then I would tell people, when you get an egg, regardless if it comes from the store, take an egg and always break an egg in a container, like a small bowl. One egg at a time. Do not break a bunch of eggs in there. Do one egg. Put your egg wherever you're going to use it, or aside. If you're going to, say you're frying a bunch of eggs at once, maybe you just put them in another bowl, but you never know if you're going to get a bad egg. Now, my eggs would never ever be bad, because I always knew my eggs were fresh. But if you're going to have an egg sitting in a fridge, especially if it's a store-bought egg, you don't know. Now, sometimes there's things, people have seen the little red, like little red veins. It's kind of like you're thinking blood, and you think that the chicken has started to form. Unless a chicken gets fertilized by a rooster, which you're not going to get with a chicken like this, and my chickens didn't get it either, but you would sometimes get a little, just a little nub in there, kind of like a little color or something. Now that can come from the feed. I have had, because I actually feed, my chickens were actually fed, in their food, there'd be a little bit of oyster shell crushed up. That's to help calcium and help the overall eggshell build. something I would add to my chickens that most people it's just an extra cost, but to get the best of the best. So anyways, yeah, it can change, and then I don't know if you can actually see this. I'll try to get a real close up. If you can see my chicken egg here, get the best view. I'm going to try to move it and see if you can see those little. I don't have it. Oh, it can kind of see them. These are little bumps, and that's actually the coarseness of. You can actually see them a little on this one too here. See, those are little bumps, and that's the actual. That's the food in their diet right there. That's the eggshells essentially that their body's crushing down and using to turn into this eggshell. So the eggshell does have nutrients in it. You can turn it down to a powder essentially if you crush it down to a fine enough powder, and you can use it as a form of calcium if you're going to be able to, you can do that. No different than a bone, you can crush down to a powder and eat it too. So the entire egg is good to eat. I don't know why people would eat old rotten black eggs. I don't see how they do that. But I hope I've given you enough little tips to how to store eggs, how you can use an egg, how to buy an egg, Personally, I'll always, not say buy the smallest egg, but a large is as large as you should ever buy an egg. And it's just basically I buy that size just because it's the most used egg for cooking. I still prefer a farm-bought egg. Some people want a little more than they should. I never charged an outright price for my eggs. Somebody gave me money for them. I was more than happy to get that for my eggs. Some people gave me more than the eggs were worth. Others wouldn't give me even half of what they were worth. But I just had the chickens, more or less to say, like as pets. I like animals, and the chickens weren't laying enough eggs for their previous owner. And the idea, and this happens to a lot of chickens. At least these chickens here, that when their life cycle finishes of laying egg, after a year of laying eggs, they all get put through the meat processor. A lot of people that are doing farm raised chickens don't bother butchering chickens when they're not laying so well anymore. And a lot of them just take the chickens, as sad to say the thing, there's no killing the chickens, just dig a hole, put the chickens in, and cover the hole. It's a practice all around the world. They do this to put down a lot of animals that they just don't want, and I think that's an inhumane, cruel way. And I believe people that are raising farm chickens and stuff should be accounted for where their chickens are actually going. Like from my chickens from long ago, because I wouldn't eat those chickens myself because my chickens were farm chickens. They were very gamey. So they were good for a stock soup, and you'd have to really mash up that meat. But my the dogs and the cats, basically like a Christmas present, I can cook a whole chicken. It's not the best for me tasting, but I can cook up a whole chicken and give it to all my cats and my dogs, and everybody gets a nice little bit, and then I can still use all the fat and the juice and everything that actually tastes great and use it for myself. So for me, I never had a problem with chickens and everything like that. I have other other stories and stuff from other videos that you probably hear about chickens and stuff too, and I have other videos talking about eggs too. Hope you enjoy this, and I hope you got a lot. Any questions or any tips about eggs, feel free to put them down more in the comments. People need to know how to keep store and keep all the best, not waste. So thanks for listening.